but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
Come
trouble.
on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Good afternoon. This is Debbie West, your host of Lost Knowledge, and I have my co-host Michael Hathaway on today. We are going to be talking about a book that was released in October of this year. It's a re-release of a UFO close encounter case that has been categorized as a U.S. UFO encounter of the fourth kind. The book is called The Andreasson Affair, written by Raymond E. Fowler. Raymond Fowler has written 5 books on this about this couple's this family's event, their contact with entities not of this world. The foreword of the book was written by Dr. J. Allen Hynek. The case is known internationally as the most researched and well-documented case of a UFO encounter and abduction experience worldwide. Mr. Fowler has appeared on numerous TV shows over the years, including Good Morning America, and his background was in a military career. Initially, he was involved in the U.S. Air Force Security Service and electronic espionage under the guise of the NSA. So we are very excited to welcome our guests today, Betty and Bob Luca. Betty Andreasson is from her maiden name from the book entitled The Andreasson Affair. So Betty and Bob, welcome to Lost Knowledge. We're so glad to have you as guests today.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you for having us on.
So, and Michael Hathaway is on the line. He's my co-host up in New Hampshire. Michael, I'd like to introduce you to the guests.
Hi, I'm really looking forward to this subject this afternoon.
Oh, that's great, Michael. Nice to talk with you.
Same here.
So, Betty, I want to start out talking a little bit about the fact that you have mentioned to me that you have a new book that will come out talking a little bit more about the alien messages and the interaction that both you and Bob have experienced and what you feel like it could have meant and what they were trying to communicate to us. And you had mentioned that the book that you're currently writing is entitled Lifting the Veil.
That's right.
Yeah, so exciting. So first of all, so along that line of questioning, first of all, the book that I read said that you were chosen for this assignment and went through a type of initiation for it.
Right. Mm-hmm. That was the Andreasson affair, which is out now for people to see. And that was an experience where my family was with me. My ex-husband, my husband at the time, had an auto accident and was in the hospital. And so my mother and father came up to stay with me. I have 7 children, and they were there to help me. And all of a sudden it was evening, and suddenly the lights went out, and then there was a reddish-orange light flashing through the pantry window into the kitchen and living room. And when that happened, of course, my father and I thought it must either be the police or a fire going on. So he rushed out before me and went into the pantry area. And meanwhile, the thing was, I rushed out into the kitchen, and that's when it all happened. I saw beings coming into my home. They were strange beings. They were dressed in blue suits. They had very large heads with gray skin, big black eyes, and they had 3 fingers on their hand. And that was the very beginning of my UFO experience.
What location was this?
This was in South Ashburnham, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
So, so Betty, when you had this encounter, the entities brought you through an initiation of some sort, where you were brought to visit someone that you later describe as the One.
Yes, exactly.
Can you tell us about that? And was that part of your initiation to bring this information about the other beings to light here?
Oh, yes, that was an initiation. The first thing, though, my father was the very first to see the beings coming down the hill. And, you know, he spoke with me about it, and I told him what I saw, but he didn't want to have anything to do with it. And the investigators wanted to also speak with him, and I said, Daddy, you know, I need your support of this, what happened. I know it happened, and so finally he says, okay, so I'll tell just what I saw, but he was a little leery over it because they lived on their Social Security, and he was worried that his Social Security would be taken away from him for something from the government. And he explained how there were small beings, and he thought that they were children dressed in moon costumes. But they came into the house. We were in the kitchen, and they said something through my mind as if I thought they wanted meat to eat, some food to eat. And so I went and I got meat out of the refrigerator and started to cook it. And a little bit of smoke rose from the pan, and the leader jumped back, and as if he was startled what was going on. And he says, no, we want knowledge tried by fire. And so the only thing I could think of was perhaps the Bible. It's been around forever. There's knowledge there for them to see. And so there was one being went over to my father in the very beginning. And so there were 4 beings and myself that went into the living room. And I was going to pick up the Bible off the end table. And I could see my mother and the children all in like a state of suspended animation, and this troubled me, wondering what is going on. And I picked up the Bible and I handed it to the leader. He said his name was Quasgar. And when he got the Bible, he put his hand out, and I could see there were 3 fingers on his hand. And he put it in his hand, and he waved his other hand over the Bible, and 3 other smaller books appeared. He passed them to the 3 that stood before him, or beside him, I should say, and they took them up, and they didn't even have to turn the pages, but they flipped by themselves, and it seemed as if they were consuming whatever was on there through their eyes, because the pages lit up when they passed through. After that, he handed me a thin blue book, and at that point, I was still kind of worried about my family just sitting there like time had stopped for them. So he took my daughter, Rebecca, out of suspended animation. She stood up and was seeing a portion of what was going on. And he told me that this thin blue book was for the initiation that I was going through. And I would be able to keep it for 10 days. To look through it and try to, get as much as I could possibly get from what was in there. And I saw drawings, some strange writing, and all sorts of strange things in there. It was just a thin blue book. And the problem was, after 10 days, it was 9 days, that they must have taken it because it disappeared. And I think I knew what the reason was, because my daughter, about 3 or 4 days after, came to me and said, "Mommy, I'm having an awful dream. I see these strange things in our house." And she explained that they had the large head and big black eyes. And I thought, I better tell her. I told her to be quiet, not to tell her brothers or sisters anything, because I didn't want them to be afraid. And we went into my living room, and I took the thin blue book that I had put in the closet on the shelf, and I sat down on the bed with her and let her touch it. She touched the surface of the thin blue book, and when she took her hand away, there were all sparkles all over her hand. And I told her, now, don't be afraid, because God is with us. It happened, but don't go saying anything to your brothers or sisters about it. And since that time, Rebecca has been able to write the unusual, strange writing. And I think it was because I allowed her to touch the book.
And I think it said in the book, Betty, that Rebecca was being trained in the script on the spaceships as well, that was part of her training.
Yes, that was part of her training. For matter of fact, as a child, she was taken by one of the beings, but it was the elders at that time, the tall, white-haired, pale-skinned, blue-eyed beings. And it was an unusual thing that happened to have it be at a very young age for her to start
What year was this?
that training.
What year was this?
We were living in Fitchburg. I think Becky was probably about 3 years old at the time. And she was taken, and I didn't know it because it was early in the morning, and I had fallen asleep after I got my husband off to work, and they were sleeping in their cribs. I knew they were all right, and suddenly a knock came at the door, and it was a woman standing there. I don't know who she was. She might have lived in the apartment close by, and said, "Your daughter is up in the sandbox. She is naked. She's up there playing in the sand." And I said, "What?" I rushed out of the house and up, and I scooped her up from the backyard and brought her in. But it was many, many years later, through the use of regressive hypnosis, we found out what had happened.
So, Betty, what I want to talk about, rather than go over the details of the events, because we can read about that in the book, and I encourage everybody to purchase the book because the regression sessions are pretty much verbatim in the book, and you can really get an idea of what happened during the experiences with these alien beings. I want you to tell us what the information was that they gave you. What did they transmit to you about the human race? Did they?
They've been with us since the beginning of our time. They love the human race. They don't want to hurt anybody. They are watchers over nature and all natural forms. So evidently, they're caretakers of the earth and man, sent by the One.
And did they say who the One is?
No, they didn't say that to me, but now I do know because I've had another experience. I've had about 2 or 3 experiences with the One, but each time it's such a fearful thing that I can't recall everything that is done. It is in such bright white light. It's like impossible. I have not seen a physical image of the One.
That's perfectly fine. What kind of what did he transmit to you? What kind of transmission was given to you by that experience?
The voice of the One said that he has chosen me to show the world, and I don't know exactly what it is unless it's because of my experiences. I'm letting people know about them, and this may help others that have gone through some UFO experiences, and for them to realize they lived through it. It's all in the hands of the One.
So, did they talk to you about how many other people have had experiences with this civilization?
Well, they didn't tell me how many other people. They did say there was 70 races visiting planet Earth, and one was detrimental to man. I don't know which one that is, but they did tell me that.
And did they say that the people that have had this experience like yourself, that they all have been given information that will be released, that they have it in their mind?
I think that a lot of people will get together. There was something about getting together, and the information will get out to people. And believe me, we really need it today.
And did they tell you? Are they going to come? Are they going to present themselves here on Earth?
Well, they have already presented themselves in many ways and to many people. It may not be an open thing that will happen with them, but eventually I think that people's minds will be open to the truth.
And you talked a little bit to me about what they said about man and why man is in the situation that they are now. Can you pass on like what they transmitted to you about?
Well, as we can see, how the world is going today, and man is destroying the planet in so many ways. With our air and the water, we see the pollution all around. We have to stop to think we're polluting our home, the very place we live, destroying it.
And is that why they're interfering now in what's happening on Earth? Is that why they're communicating with us? They want us to stop what we're doing?
Well, I think so, yes. I think that, they want us to get back to natural living, the natural life, instead of hurting Earth. The Earth also has a personality. I mean, it has an intelligence. And, I mean, we see it daily just by, how the Earth works with its winds, its plants, its rain, all of that. It's an intelligence of its own. It was years later that I was brought to another place, and I saw these crystal orbs, and I asked the being, what are they for? And they said they are keepers of intelligence. And he also said that they can be as small as an atom, but as large as planets in the sun and beyond.
And then, what kind of technology was shown to you? Like when you were taken aboard the ship and being brought to different places.
Well, I saw how the ship worked. I don't know exactly. I'm not a scientist, but I drew pictures of what was happening. Matter of fact, we're putting it on our Facebook. I thought, and Bob thought, it would be nice if the people could see some of the machinery. And so, and just today I've finished another drawing of how it worked. Now, there is a man named Paul Potter from England I worked with for 5 years, and he was trying to put together how the Andreasson affair craft was able to move in the way it did.
Did you know like what kind of technology they had that was different than ours?
Well, I just had something, this is brand new. When I was telling Paul Potter, now this was quite a few years ago, I worked with him for 5 years, and I was telling him that they also said that they used mercury and gel, and now there is some work going on with that kind of technology. The strange thing is, just the day before Thanksgiving, my daughter Bonnie was here with me, and she was talking. Her and her brother Mark wanted to know where the door was on the outside of the house we lived in South Ashburnham, Mass. The cellar door. They didn't remember. And so I went through what the house looked like and what we had changed and everything. Well, she also went on to say that she was, they were playing over on the cement foundation, and they were playing with mercury. And I said, what? Mercury is poisonous. What are you talking about? Now, she was just a young child at that time, and so were the others young. And she said, yeah, we had it. We found a little pool of mercury there, and we had it in our hands, swishing it back and forth. And so I was startled, and it just came up just recently, this Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving of 2014. And I remembered they told me that they were using mercury and a gel in their craft. And I guess there's some different scientists now were looking into something like that.
So, Betty, when you were brought onto the ship and you were being transported, they put a liquid around you and put something into your mouth and nose so that you could, a breathing apparatus of some kind.
Right, because they were going to take me somewhere. I had gone through examinations, and then they decided they were going to take me somewhere to show me more, and that was where I was taken, where the one had spoken to me and said, I've chosen you to show the world. And it was strange because I was first in one chair and then a second one, and then the two beings moved me up. They were dressed in a silver suit at this time. We moved into like a cavern. It was very dark. We're moving along, and up ahead was a mirror. And we went right through the mirror into a red atmosphere. I know these things sound very peculiar and odd.
No, not really. So did you feel like you were going through into another dimension, like through a Stargate, or what was that, where you just went through something? What did that feel like?
Well, it felt physical. We were on this black track that we just moved along. We didn't have to walk. And we went into this red atmosphere where these red creatures were, and they had like two stalks by their neck, and on the end of the stalks were two large black eyes. We moved through there. The beings put a black hood over their heads, but they didn't provide me with one. So I don't know what that was about at that time, but I now think I know. We moved through that red atmosphere on the black track, and there was a swirling light, and we moved through that swirling light into a green atmosphere. And we're on this track. We kept on going on this track. I could see a city off to the left. There were there were domes and pinnacles, and there was those same tracks running all through and around that city of whatever it was off to the left. But underneath us was like an ocean of green water. And we just kept on moving. And then as we passed that city, I saw this three-sided pyramid, strange looking. And it had a head on top of it. And it looked just like an Egyptian head with a headdress. It was very strange to me. And we kept on moving. And as we kept on moving, now this took a while. I know, to tell it, it just takes seconds to tell what happened. But as we moved along, all of a sudden there were these beautiful colored crystals just hanging in midair. And they just were hanging there and just moving about. There were rainbows around, and these crystals were just absolutely beautiful. We moved past those, and then we were moving up, and I could feel this bright light streaking toward us. And as we kept on moving in, the two beings got to the side and just stopped. They got off the track. There's some land there. And they told me I have to go forward. And as I went forward, I saw the light, but I saw this huge bird standing there. And it was an eagle. It had its wings down, and I could see the feathers fluffing around, but there was such bright light in back of it, just streaking out in all different directions. And there was sparks flying around, and it just got hotter and hotter as I stood before it. I thought it was going to, bite me or whatever, because it was so huge. And the sparks were flying, and I must have passed out, because as I lay there, I got up, and that part of the bird was gone, but there was a huge pile of gray ashes and fire still going. And as I watched it, eventually a large gray worm crawled out of the ashes. I know these sound peculiar, but, it happened to me. That's all I can tell you. And all of a sudden it was bright light and multiple voice of one saying, Betty, you have seen and you have heard. Do you understand? And I said, no, I don't understand. I don't even know why I'm here. And I started to cry, and I thought, it has to be the Lord that is talking to me. And at that point, it was just bright white light, and the light and the voice came forth and said, I have chosen you to show the world. And I thought, to show what? What are you talking about? And at that point, I just was turned around, the beings came for me, and we headed back.
When the worm came out of the ashes, did that have any symbolic meaning for you?
No, not at all. I think though Ray Fowler said that's something like the phoenix bird. But I looked up what a phoenix bird was, and that definitely was an eagle. That was not a phoenix bird. And what's strange is the beings with the blue suits that came into my house, on their shoulder of their arm, they had a golden or like a bird that looked like an eagle.
But you haven't quite figured out what the connection with the eagle yet?
Well, no, I don't. No, it just was the eagle with the light shining there, and then after that, the bright light off to the side, and it telling me, I've chosen you to show the world.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the experience where you met the Watchers?
They are the Watchers. They were. You're talking about the gray beings with the black eyes? Or
No,
are you talking about the elders, which were the tall beings with white hair, and pale skin, and blue eyes?
Mm-hmm. Did you talk to them?
Yes, I did.
And what did they tell you?
Well, I've had different experiences with them. They they seem to me as if they're a higher division of angels or something, because don't forget, in 1967, when those beings entered my home, I was really afraid, and right away Bible scripture entered my mind and said, entertain the stranger, for it may be angels unaware. And who am I to tell what angels are supposed to look like? Because God has, according to the Word, has made different kinds of angels. And that gave me a peaceful and loving feeling come over me. The elders now, they seem very peaceful and loving, but they seem as if they are of a higher degree than the watchers.
And what is their purpose? Do they interact with man also?
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah. In different ways.
Mm-hmm. And did these beings that you traveled with, do they tell you where they come from?
Not actually. They did mention some things, but still is so much said to me. It's like, and it's been about 57 years ago, the 1967 encounter happened. So, you lose some of that memory of everything that took place, even though we're still having a lot of different things happen. And not only that, but people that have had encounters, sometimes the family, some of the children follow into the same path. And with Bob and I, not only our encounters do we have, but we have a lot of paranormal things happening around us. I don't know if it's because our spirit is open or if God is trying to show us something, but there's a lot of paranormal activity that goes on as well.
Mm-hmm. I know that Bob also has some encounters with these. Are they the exact same beings that Bob had encountered as well?
I'll let Bob tell you. How would that be?
Oh, that would be great.
Okay.
Sure. Basically, in 1977, I met Betty, but unknown to me, that trip started actually in 1944. When I was 5 years old, I was living at my grandmother's house with my mother because my dad and my uncles were all overseas during World War II. I was on a swing set in my backyard, or my grandmother's backyard. To the left of my swing set, there was a garden, a victory garden, which many people had during the war. And I noticed a light in the sky. The light came closer and closer, and it literally stopped above and to the left of my swing set, which was over the garden area. Out of this object, it was a round saucer-shaped object, domed on top with a clear, what looked like clear glass, and a light, a very thin light, bright white light, about the size of a pencil lead, struck me in the forehead, and I became paralyzed on that swing. I couldn't get off it. I couldn't really move. I couldn't do anything. And as this craft tipped, I could see in the glass dome, and there were what I call two little people, which it turned out to be the typical large-headed gray being with the big eyes, what we know today as the Greys. And they told me in a voice in my own head that people like myself as a child later on in life would meet other people that had had similar experiences and that we wouldn't be fearful. They also told me at that time that they were doing something that would be good for mankind. And I remember this is 1944. They left, and I was told not to talk to anybody by them, not to say anything to anyone, my mother or anybody. The only physical evidence left was that area of the garden would no longer grow anything, and for years, not even grass would grow in that area. Now, some time passed, and in 1967, in the summer, I was on a trip to the beach. It was a beautiful, clear day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. And as I got to an area known as the Trap Rock, there was a railroad spur that went into this quarry. 5 men were working on that railroad spur. Only none of them were working. They were all looking up in the air. So I glanced up to see what had drawn their interest, and there were 2 huge cigar-shaped objects that were extremely bright. They were almost like highly polished chrome reflecting sunlight, and they were going along side by side, more or less from where I was in Wallingford, Connecticut. They were going toward New Haven, Connecticut. So I pulled my car over thinking, this is amazing. I'd always been interested in airplanes and things like that, but these things had no wings, no tail section, no exhaust, no noise, so obviously it didn't take very long to figure out this is something highly unusual. So I watched these 2 craft, and all of a sudden 2 smaller craft dropped out of these huge cigar-shaped things. They were typical saucer-shaped craft. One left in the direction of New Haven, one left in the exact opposite direction. Well, I sat in my car. I watched till they were all out of sight. I thought, wow, that is something, whatever it is. I started my way back to the beach, or toward the beach. I got down the road a few miles, and this is a very rural area. There were no houses in that particular area back then. All of a sudden, I saw one of the dome-shaped craft coming back on the left-hand side of the road. It was a large field, and it slowly floated down to the earth, almost like a leaf falling out of a tree in the fall. It stopped a few feet above the ground, and this is all conscious memory. I looked at this thing, and all of a sudden I saw a brilliant flash of red light, and it was so intense. The only thing I could liken it to would be like a ruby ray laser, where you had that very brilliant, coherent light. And suddenly, somehow, I was inside of this thing. And there was one of these little guys behind me, the typical gray, similar to what Betty described, but these fellows had on a skin-tight red uniform with a lightning bolt on the left-hand side of the chest. In this room that I was on, there was a table, which I could only describe even today as possibly plexiglass or something similar. I was told to undress, and I was put on this table. And the interesting thing was, well, interesting and fearful as well, there were no restraints on this table, no straps, nothing visible, and yet when they put me on there, I could not move. It was almost like somebody superglued me to that table. I could move my eyes, I could move my head a bit, and that was it. They examined me, they took skin samples, they took nail samples. I was scanned with something that I can only liken to possibly some sort of X-ray machine or something, but the difference was where our X-ray machines don't give off anything, this thing actually emitted a pinkish white light that actually came out of it for a short distance. It's kind of hard to describe. But at any rate, after I was examined, I was returned to my car. And even though, let me back up a minute, even though I was fearful while I was in there, there's some things I noticed that were highly unusual. For one thing, there were no shadows. It was almost as if the actual atmosphere of the place was lit. There were no lights I could see, no light source anywhere, and yet everything was lit and with no shadows. The other thing, it was a little cooler than outside. It wasn't cold, but it was cool. And the floor seemed to be covered with a fog or vapor of some sort. There was also a slight smell of ozone, like you would have after a lightning strike or some kind of electrical discharge. I was familiar with that because I did a lot of electromechanical work. Well, I was put back in my car, made my way to the beach, which normally should have been 30 to 45 minutes, But by the time I had gotten to the beach, approximately 2.5 to 3 hours had passed when I got there. And I never knew for years, what the heck, where was I? Where did that time go? And it was years later that I decided with a friend of mine to take a trip around the country, and we were just kind of going to look for work in another state, maybe do something a little different. Well, apparently I was led to go on this trip because I had a job at the time as a service manager at an automotive dealership. I was being very well paid. I had a new car demonstrator every 3 months. My salary was good. I had a gas expense account. And I told my boss, I said, I have to go on this trip. I need a month off. Well, his reaction wasn't too good. He said, I can't give you a month off. This was on a Friday. I went home, I thought about it, and I came in Monday, and I said, Bob, there's only 2 or 3 things we can do here. I said, you can give me a month off, you can fire me, or I can quit. But I'm going on this trip. Finally, he gave in. He gave me a month off. I went on a trip with my friend Eddie. We went down across the country through Texas, California, and we were on our way back at a rest area. Now, we were headed back across the northern tier of the country, going back to Connecticut. And at that time, we decided to go to Florida, which is several thousand miles out of our way. We went to Florida, and we ended up, my friend Eddie had a sister-in-law that lived there, and she worked at a restaurant called The Clock. One evening, during the evening meal, she had mentioned that she worked with a woman that had had a UFO experience. And I thought, wow, I'd like to talk to this woman because for years, the only person I told was my parents and my very best friend then, who was a police officer. Well, I went down to visit Betty, and as luck would have it, she didn't want to talk to me because Ray Fowler had warned her about reporters. She thought I was a reporter. So I tried to turn on a little charm or whatever, talk to her, and finally I made a date with her for the following day for lunch. And since that time, I've been buying her lunch pretty much every day.
That's such a cute story, Bob.
That was meant to happen. Everything from 1944 on to the point where we met, that was meant to happen. There's no doubt in my mind that that was programmed. And Betty and I, it's unusual that we got together because, as you know, Betty spent a lot of time reading the Bible and so on. And I was a hellraiser. I was totally different than her. I didn't have any religious thoughts at the time. But I will say this. Since the UFO experiences, and since seeing some of these beings turn from a solid physical being into a being of strictly light, and since being pulled out of my body, literally, in the spirit, if you will, I have had to change my thinking. I now believe, yeah, there's a spirit world, and there are other dimensions, and I am totally convinced of this at this point.
So you said in the very beginning that the beings communicated to you that at age 5 that they were going to be helping mankind, and this was something you were supposed to not talk about until maybe now. What do you think that they're trying to do to help mankind?
Well, they've done some strange, what could be considered strange. There have been several cases where these beings have literally disabled numbers of nuclear missiles belonging to the United States, and they've done the same to the Soviets. Talking to people that were there at the time, they said they got the impression that the message was, no, we're not going to let you use these. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I never thought much personally about the environment before this. After these experiences, I started to realizing how literally stupid mankind is for doing what he's doing to the very planet that provides our life. You know, this is foolishness. I think a lot more people are becoming aware, and I think these beings have something to do with that thought.
A lot of the people that have had alien contact have talked about them extracting sperm samples and showing them hybrid children. And I think, did you also have this kind of a similar experience?
Okay. Yeah, I don't talk about that usually, but yeah, yes, I did, and it was very hard to discuss because I tried to pass it off, even after hypnosis, as just a very vivid dream that I had. It's something that I didn't want to accept, really. But yes, I did see a child, and the impression was given to me that it was from sperm that they had taken from me in 1967. But again, it's not something I'm real comfortable with even right now, to be honest with you.
I realize that, and I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but one of the theories that I've been given is that, and this is from other forces, unseen forces, is that the upgrade of the elevation of consciousness of the human species is partly being caused through this program that the Greys have been participating in. And that's one of the ways that they're helping us to understand our own evolution of consciousness and how we need to interact as interconnected beings that are all...
Sure, and also there are children being born in the past few years. You have some kids that have been at college, entering college between like 8 and 12 years old. I mean, I think this is kind of unusual, to say the least. Maybe the beings have had some influence on this. I don't know for sure, but it seems like these children are interested in helping mankind where they want to enter the fields of science, medicine, and so on.
Did they give you an indication that they have obviously very advanced technology that they could share with us?
Well, I'm going to give you my personal opinion because some people out there aren't going to like this. Yes, they do have very advanced technology. They have, at least some group has shared some with our government. And quite frankly, I believe our government has the technology now to eliminate our need for oil and independent electrical generation plants. But I believe that it's greed and the pursuit of the dollar that is stopping that from coming out. And I'm going to give you one small example. I worked as a technician, a research technician on hydrogen fuel cells. The company I worked for had developed a unit that went in your home. This unit was the size of a refrigerator. It made electricity, heat, and hot water. It had no moving parts, and it only required a filter change once a year. So with this unit, you could effectively disconnect yourself from the grid. We were ready to put this into production. Not we, but they, the company. Along came two giant oil corporations, and within 60 days, we were all laid off and had to sign confidentiality agreements. Had this unit come out, and it's still not out today because I've looked, it would have meant a tremendous drop in our consumption of oil and our need for generated electricity. And in addition to that, these units made absolutely zero pollution. But, as I said, they're not out. And this is not secondhand information because I've worked at this company and I've witnessed these things myself.
What year was that?
Pardon?
What year?
What year
That was
was
in
that?
2001.
Thanks.
So Bob, you mentioned that the beings, and I believe you're talking about the gray aliens who you've been in contact with, have exchanged technology programs with our government, with the U.S. government?
Well, the problem is there's more than one group visiting us, and I don't know if that is the particular group that has worked with our government or if it's another group. There are rumors of a base below ground at Delsey where aliens are allowed to work freely with mankind. But some of the things that have come out of there have not sounded very positive. So if that is the case, then it wouldn't be the beings that I had exchanged information with.
What makes you say that?
Well, the rumors are that there were
Well, not to talk about
some of
the
our
rumors.
men were
What-
killed
what
at
do you-
Chelsea when
Yeah, I know the rumors, but why do you feel that that wouldn't be the beings that you came in contact with? What makes you think that the beings that you contacted have a higher morality and are of a higher nature?
well, it's very similar to the ones that Betty had contacted. They are not here for destructive purposes. They are here to aid mankind, and as they told me, prepare things in the future that would be beneficial to mankind. You know, body parts in a vat don't sound very beneficial to me.
So did they give you, when you had this contacts with these gray aliens, did they give you an idea about why they feel that man is so is not evolving the way they should?
Well, the thing is look at our food sources and the disease that is happening now in our country in particular because of the GMO thing going on. You know, there's some countries that are smart enough to, not have it. They don't want their people eating that type of food. But I think that's why we're having a lot of problems in the health, with our health and illnesses happening.
Well, one of the things, Betty, that you talked about, that you mentioned during your hypnosis sessions, was that they thought that we needed to understand more about love, and that we needed to understand more about ourselves. We needed to reveal. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yes, we have to know who we really are. And I'm hoping that what I received for lifting the veil will help people to understand who we are. I mean, and understand why this has all happened. The wrong choice that we took, that could have been, the world and life could be just wonderful otherwise. But there is a price to pay for all of these things, and that will be in the Lifting the Veil book. What happened was I was praying to God, and I asked about the one. And at that point, I started to draw a picture. I'm an amateur artist. I thought I could see better what was going on by a picture. And so I started to draw the one, and all of a sudden it just burst out of me what it is all about. And I'd rather not tell it at this point, because, as I said, there's about two or three chapters just on that particular part, and I think people will want to hear it, write the words as they read them.
But were you given some sort of a sense of order of the universe, the cosmos?
Yes, very, very much so. Very much so. But we have to realize that, in the Word of God it says, I have created good and I have created evil. The thing is that the one knows how to...
Betty, hold on to that thought. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back on Lost Knowledge with Bob Luca and Betty Andreasson from the Andreasson Affair, written by Raymond Fowler. And we'll get a chance to talk more to Betty and Bob about this event and how it's impacted their lives. We'll be back after a short break. on Lost Knowledge. We are here for our second hour. We're talking to Betty and Bob Luca about the Andreasson affair, which is an event that occurred back in the 1960s with gray aliens. Betty, before the break, Kwanzaa, who was your main contact during the alien experiences, gave you a message telepathically. And I'm just going to read from the book the message that he gave to you. He says that the race won't believe me until much time has passed, our time. They love the human race. They have come to help the human race, and unless man will accept, he will not be saved, and he will not live. All things have been planned. Love is the greatest of all. They do not want to hurt anybody, but because of great love, they said, because of great love, they cannot let man continue in the footsteps that he is going. It is better to lose some than to lose all. They have technology that man could use. It is through the spirit, but man will not search out that portion. When Kwanzaa gave you this message, do you recall what it felt like to be receiving this information?
Well, it's been many years, but thank you very much for reading it, because I'm 78 years old now, and it's a little bit hard for me to recall everything. But, I believe, even at this time, I believe that the Antichrist is here. And I think Nostradamus even named the Antichrist as Mavis. It will always go backwards. He will do the backward thing, the wrong thing. And as I said, he will have an alpha and omega, a beginning and an end to him. But the name Mavis is the Antichrist, and I believe he is here already.
So I just want to introduce real quick. I have brought on the call Judy Carroll, and Judy is from Australia. She works a lot with the gray aliens. Betty, she's read all of your books and is very familiar working with the grays to bring information that they'd like to share with us now on Earth. Judy, are you on the line?
Yes, I am, Debbie.
So it's so good to have you, and we've been talking to Bob and Betty about their incredible experiences with the gray aliens, and one of the things that have come out is that they were initiated, Betty was initiated to come to the world to bring this information out to the public at this time, and I just wondered what your comments might be right now from the grays.
Okay, look, I absolutely agree totally with Betty and Bob. I've read their books, and everything that they have been told by the Greys is very, very exact with what I've been told as well, that they're actually here to try to wake people up, that there's a huge disinformation campaign going on this planet at the moment, and some of this disinformation campaign actually involves propaganda about the Greys trying to make out that they're the evil force, and they're not.
So would the Greys like to open dialogue again with the U.S. government, and was there a treaty that they entered into back in the 50s that allowed them to make contact with the human race?
Yes, as far as I understand, they were in contact in the 1950s. In fact, I'm not absolutely certain on this, but I believe that there was a treaty involving the government, but it wasn't the Greys who broke the treaty, the government did. And that was the reason why they backed away, because there were things happening that they didn't like to see happening. I think that's why also they're very hesitant about coming forward now, because their technology has been used in the wrong way for warfare, etc. This is actually the reason why some of the ETs are doing things like putting down missiles on sites, whatever the term is, deactivating them, to try to keep peace on Earth. Apparently they have intervened on a number of occasions and virtually stopped World War III happening. So they're very, very concerned about this, but very, very hesitant at the same time about approaching people down here.
Have the Greys been successful in repopulating their species? Because I think part of their program involved reactivating some genetics that allowed them to gain reproduction.
Yes, well, what actually happened, there was a massive interference eons ago with the Zeta Reticuli people. Again, the same negative force that is working down here attacked them. There was like a war happened, and they lost their ability to reproduce. It was a rather similar thing to what went on in the Second World War under the Nazi regime, a attempt to extinguish their race. And they've never really recovered from this. So what's happening, they're running a sort of an exchange program to try to get their ability to reproduce back again. At the same time, they're providing DNA down here because Earth human DNA was interfered with long ago, and they're trying to get the Earth human race back on track by repairing the DNA for them to enable Earth humans to open their consciousness up, which is our path of evolution down here. So there's a very fair exchange program going on, as far as I understand.
Judy, how do you know all of this?
I've had contact, very close contact with the Greys all my life. I've written 2 books on the subject, and I have another one due out in May. I've had conscious face-to-face contact with them and received a huge amount of teachings and messages from them. This contact was validated by the young daughter of another lady who I was introduced to by a mutual friend when they started getting contact in their home. She was put in touch with a Grey teacher who is associated with the one I've worked with all my life, and the messages that were given to her were almost exact word for word with the ones given to me, and we had never discussed it. I'd never met her before. I've also received a lot of validation from other people since my books have been published. We have a Facebook page and a lot of contact with people all over the planet who've had experiences themselves.
So Bob and Betty mentioned to us earlier in the show that the Greys had told her that there would be an activation of the dormant information that was being planted in humans, and that they would all be able then to remember and come together with this information. Do you feel like we're in the midst of that right now?
Yes, that it's certainly happening, and they are working through people like us, like Betty and Bob, and people like myself and other authors who are putting out correct information on the Greys as a counter to the disinformation that's been spread. I can feel this happening. More and more people are opening up to the more positive message.
Have you met Betty and Bob before?
No, I haven't. I would love to. I'll be honoured to meet them. I'm honoured to be speaking on the same show that they are.
Betty, are you familiar with Judy at all, and the work that she's doing with the Greys? Have you ever made contact with her that you know of?
No, I haven't, but she sounds like a lovely lady.
So one of the things that I'm gonna stop and talk to Bob for another minute, Judy, because we were in the middle of talking a little bit about this problem that we're having with the governments on the planet, the U.S. government being one of them. Bob, do you feel that the information that there is a lot of information being suppressed by the government, and that the government has knowledge of these alien civilizations that they should share with the general public?
Absolutely. The whole goal, the reason for keeping this information, unfortunately, comes down to power and the dollar. If we had technology today where we wouldn't need oil or gasoline to run our vehicles, or where we wouldn't need these massive medical conglomerations hooking people on pills for the rest of their lives, a lot of dollars wouldn't be going to the people that they're going to today, and that would not be beneficial for the economy in the eyes of the government. Also, the government would not have the kind of control over people that it desires. It's obvious over the past few decades, government control has been trying to influence itself in every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And this is just plain not right. I don't care what government it is, and it's no better in this country today. In fact, it's getting much worse.
Why have not the Greys, with all of their advanced technology, stepped in to correct this?
Well, I don't know if they can just directly step in and interfere with our society as it is. I mean, I believe it was the RAND think tank that did a study years ago and decided if we ever came upon another civilization and we were technologically superior, that we would not interfere. We would let ourselves be seen at a distance for a long time and gradually over many, many years get closer and closer before revealing ourselves openly. And it seems, if you look back from the 50s to today, it seems like that's pretty much what has been happening. They cannot force our government to do what it should do, but they can lead people. Many people around the world realize that, as they told Betty years ago, love is the answer. If you love people and if you love this planet, you're not going to destroy the other people or the planet.
Bob, were you or Betty ever approached by people from our government?
Yes.
Did they ask you about your contact with the gray aliens?
Yeah.
Indirectly, yes. We have, okay, once the first book was ready for publication, the government tried a number of things on us that included intimidation, harassment, trying to make you look ridiculous. They had used the IRS, the FBI, I believe Air Force Intelligence, maybe one or more groups that I'm not sure of. They tapped our telephone. We were followed in cars that, fortunately, a number of times we were able to get the license plate number from these cars. As a young fellow growing up, I used to build race cars. And several times when we were followed, I was actually able to get in back of the cars that were following us. We got the license plates, turned them over to Larry Fawcett, who was a police lieutenant and one of the investigators in our case. When the license plates were run, they came back as unissued. So your average Joe on the street is not driving with unissued plates.
So these people that were harassing you, though, they were not of the off-world nature. These were government officials. Are you sure of that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we really.
We also had hundreds and hundreds of overflights by these black unmarked helicopters that seemed to know where we were at any given moment. And the interesting thing is, I took probably 200-300 photos of them. I sent one of the photos to a man named Dick Tipton, who was the public relations man for Bell Helicopter, who actually builds the Huey helicopters. He sent me back a letter, which I have to this day, stating that that particular helicopter never left Bell in that condition. It had been modified by the military and used for psychological warfare. So, why are they over our home? Why did they follow us on vacation to Florida, to New Hampshire, wherever we were? We went through this for years. And as I said, our telephone was tapped, and IRS, I believe we had 3 or 4 audits in a row, and the first audit, they asked Betty things like, what did you see? What did the beings look like? The craft? Now, these are not normal questions for the IRS. Also, in time, when I say we were harassed, I mean IRS would not take canceled checks as my proof of payment for water and sewer taxes, property taxes, things like that. I had to go to the banks where we had mortgages. I had to go to the city and get signed statements from officials that we had paid these things and they were up to date. At one point, they asked me to produce documents that were 12 years old.
So, Bob, I have to ask you, with all of that you've been through and all of the harassment to silence you, you went into pretty much a phase where you didn't talk about your UFO contacts, you and Betty. You kept silent for 15 or 20 years. Why now? Why come back out now? And why publish this book? And why be writing another book about your experience with these gray aliens?
Oh, that's not quite accurate. We talked a lot for the first about 5 years. In fact, even though they were trying all these things on us, and some of the other things they did to intimidate was let us know that they knew where we were at any given time.
Right.
But we saw what other people had been through. We saw other people be harassed. We saw the programs they had to make people look ridiculous. So we took a more, what would you say, a different approach. I called on numerous times the Air Force headquarters at the Pentagon. I told them, look, what you guys are putting out is bunk. I've got your own documents here. I challenged the FBI to do a TV show with us to discuss not our case, but their own documents. They backed down. I called the CIA to try to get an interview with them regarding the UFO phenomena for a book that we were going to do. They backed down. Betty and I went to NASA, and at the gate, we talked to the guard, and we told him we were writing a book, and we wanted an interview with the administrator. He called, said the administrator is in the office. We'd be happy to talk to you. We walked down there, which was quite a long walk. I don't know if you're familiar with the setup in Cape Canaveral, but it took us a while to get there. When we got to the office, we were met by a visibly shaken secretary who told us the administrator was not there, even though he was there only 5 minutes earlier. Right. The government actually ran from us.
Right. And telephone calls, it was terrible. At times, my mother was sick, and the line would be left open. And I picked up the phone another time, and they said the director's office. And I said, director of what? And they hung up. Another time, I got a job updating the city directory, and there were 6 of us girls in there collecting information, and there was the boss on the other side, and then there was the one that was a salesman, a young man, and he would go out of town, but he would call the office several times a day. He knew that number by heart. Well, all of a sudden, he came into where us girls were. He knew about my encounter, and he was in a state of shock. And he says, you're not going to believe this, he says. I called the office, and I got the Pentagon. So it's the government.
So I guess my question to you guys is, this book did just come out, a new edition, and why do you feel this book is so important to give to people to pass this information on?
Yeah, people need to know, and they need to know about who they are. They need to know who is watching over us and what we can do to make a better life for everyone.
So is there a message about, you talked about Mavis when we first got back on after the break. Is there a message that there are dark forces competing here on the planet?
Oh, definitely there are, yes. There is, with the name of Mavis that was spoken long ago by Nostradamus, and it's here now.
Judy,
I don't want to go into it because people will say, what? I can't believe that. Well,
I think we can believe it. I think that we can believe that we're in a time of sort of that's been destined. Since the passing of 2012, we have entered into a new galactic time zone, and this is the time that's been predicted. This is the apocalyptic time period where we have to choose our path of evolution. This planet has to either evolve into the 5th dimension or destroy itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Will that be in the new book too?
About Mavis, no. It's higher ups that I would rather not say because I don't know what would happen to us.
Judy, have you had the same experiences of harassment?
No, I haven't personally. My co-author did have a black helicopter come in over her house. It was one of those huge Chinook helicopters. But I think the fact that we don't live in the States, I think, goes a long way.
Wait, 1 second. Okay, I want to go back to Betty for 1 second. You said you don't know you don't know the higher ups what would happen to you. Are you speaking about higher up alien civilizations or higher up U.S. and government officials?
In the government.
Oh, so it sounds as if you and Bob are more fearful of the government in the United States.
No, we're trusting in God that He is watching out for us. We've been through a lot of terrible things and everything, but each time we've been fine, thank you.
Yeah, and I think because your intention is to bring news of hope and of evolution to the species through your contact, that you're really intent on sharing with us the hope and the prosperity that we could be participating in, right?
Yes. Amen.
How does all of this fit with your religion, the UFO experience?
Well, now the thing is, religion, a lot of people shy away from it. I don't like the word religion. It's a deeper thing than religion. Even though, the scriptures are there, of course, and they're important and they're truth, but, everybody doesn't have the same, let's say, religion. The thing is to understand that God loves every one of us.
And how do you define God?
Well, that is in the book that, Lifting the Veil. I am defining God right then and there. And it was a surprise to me at one point when it was being shown to me spiritually.
So that description will be coming up then in the new book?
Most definitely. You will see the exact picture.
How does this fit with your beliefs, Judy?
Oh, look, it could be me speaking. Honestly, I have tears in my eyes listening to what Betty and Bob are talking about. The funny thing is that I have a book due to be released in May, and it sounds like it's an exact parallel of what their book is about. This is amazing. Look, even the fact that I came onto the computer at the time I did and received this message this morning, excuse my joke, this is how I deal with these things. I can feel long grey fingers dabbling here because, honestly, I'm blown away. I really am.
Well, I think the message is really clear here, is that the gray aliens have had a very bad a negative PR campaign against them, and I have been witness to that. I have been working with disclosure people for several years at the high level of government and ufologists, and everyone's very confused about what the intentions are for the gray aliens. Why have they abducted so many humans, and was it something that was agreed upon both in sole contract at the root of the abduction, and also was it a treaty that they entered into lawfully and with good intention with our government? And those are some of the questions I think that most of the ufologists are wondering, if the Greys would like to address us on those.
Well, they may think that it is what the government is allowing or not allowing, but there's a higher power that is doing things that sometimes we can't understand why they happen. But from the beginning, it's because man has stepped away from the truth. And that's why all of this, from the very beginning of man's life, has happened. We wonder, whoa, how come, this person killed somebody? Why did that happen? Well, God knows about it, and there are purposes and reasons. It doesn't mean that that person is lost. As you will read also in the book, Bob was shown some information, very important information from the elders that will help others understand what is going on.
Do you believe in past lives?
Well, I believe that we were always, and always will be. Bob can explain what he was told.
Well, during an abduction experience in 1978, we were both taken, and we were right out of our home, actually, the bedroom of our home, and Betty was taken into one area where was shown, given some sort of education, let's say. I was taken into another area by two of the very tall elders. They sat me down, and as I said, I was a little crude growing up. They told me that it was a privilege for me to be there. And they told me some things like, for one, you do not die. They said your physical body dies, but the light person, and remember I had seen the light person before, the light person inside you is the real you, the part that survives. They also said that this was a learning process on this earth. This was not the end. There was much, much more to come. However, what you do here is going to determine where you go from this point. And they made that very clear. They also mentioned, which I'm still not sure I understand, the importance of animals and people that had mistreated animals and think there will be no punishment for it. Apparently the animals are regarded higher than most of us are aware of, and those that have done damage to them, cruelty or whatever, apparently will face some kind of punishment for it. They also said when the hypnotist asked to describe the Creator, my reply was, and believe me, this was not me talking, this was under hypnosis, that it would be like the human mind trying to understand the length, breadth, and depth of the whole universe itself, which is to us incomprehensible. And that's how they related to me what the one or God is.
Are we all a piece of that one?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's just like another thing that in this whole UFO phenomena, everybody has a little piece of the puzzle. Betty and I have a part. There are thousands of other people out there that have their part. And no one has put it all together as yet. And there's a fellow named Trevor Constable that said it best years ago, and it still stands today. He said there are no experts in the UFO phenomena, only people with varying degrees of ignorance. And I believe that still stands today. But we each must get together, try to sort the information we have, and get to the truth. That's the objective.
Amen.
I've got a question that I really want to ask, and it may be a little bit off, but maybe you guys know the answer. I've been told by many intuitive psychic people, independently of each other, that there's something that follows me, a force that's about, well, they describe it as 15 feet tall, and I've been told that it is not necessarily the Earth. Have you ever run into something like this?
15 feet tall, no, I have never seen that, but if they are sensing it, then it is there. And it could be a part of you, I think, that you're not aware of.
Okay, thank you. That's.
You're welcome.
And Deb, are you there?
I'm here. I'm really enjoying this information from the Greys. I feel that they and all of the other species, have a lot to share with us and can help us with those pieces of the puzzle if we just open our hearts and our minds to receiving the information. And you three, Bob and Betty and Judy, have been able to do that in such a beautiful way. And I hope that you can inspire others to do the same and to understand more about these other civilizations and what kind of things we can learn and share with each other in a peaceful way, and also to declare the beings here on Earth, the beings whose souls are earthbound, to become peaceful, sovereign stewards of this beautiful planet, which I think is how it was intended in the beginning.
You know, there's another part to this that we haven't discussed at all. It's happened to many, many people. It seems like paranormal experiences follow this UFO phenomena. Once you've been tagged, so to speak, you experience some very unusual things. And I'd like to mention a couple of them. Some of them are actually kind of funny that happened to you. It's beyond your understanding. I'll give you, for instance, there was an evening we were having coffee with our niece and nephew and two of their friends at the Lake Worth IHOP on Lake Worth Road in Florida. Well, Betty stirred her coffee, pulled the spoon out of the coffee, was holding it, and the spoon part fell right off of the handle. Okay, it just separated. Now, the spoon was saved. We gave it to Ray Fowler. He gave it to a metallurgist. It was studied. No apparent reason was found for the spoon breaking off like that. I mean, the coffee was strong, but not that bad. So on another occasion, when Betty was under hypnosis, another voice turned up under her voice. And these are all brand new tapes that were used. There were several investigators present in addition to the hypnotist. And other things happened, like Larry Fawcett, who was a police lieutenant trained in criminal investigation, jumped out of his seat, went to the wall, pulled back the curtain because there was a light that had gone across the wall, and he thought perhaps it was a car outside. Well, there was no window there. It was all solid wall.
I think, Judy, maybe you could shed some light on that, because we know that the veil is thinning, and that the other dimensions of existence are starting to be more familiar to us, and as we emerge into the fifth dimension and become multidimensional beings. Can you shed some light on this phenomenon of other dimensions and the densities and things like that?
Yes. The understanding that I've been given by the tall greys, the elders, is that the whole contact phenomenon is about opening up deeper consciousness or deeper conscious awareness to humans. And so therefore, the more contact we have, the more we are able to tap into these other dimensions. I mean, the universe is multidimensional. At the point where we are now, we can only use about 10% of our conscious awareness. It's not brain power we talk about when we talk about using 10% of our brain. It's actually conscious awareness. And this is linked into the 10% of our DNA that's activated. Now, as the ETs take us up onto the ships and work on our DNA and repair it, we will be able to gradually access deeper and deeper levels of consciousness. And this is what human evolution is all about. This is the reason why people having contact experiences are able to tap into other dimensions, perceive other things, and things happen around them. It's interesting because listening to what Betty and Bob have been saying, a very similar thing happened to me once. I was sitting in a meditation group, and a little light started playing around on the wall. And it was when I had one of the greys with me, channeling, and this little light stopped above my head, and apparently I didn't see this, the others in the group saw it. A picture that was on the wall above me, like in a picture frame, started moving from side to side and had a blue glow to it. Another thing that's happened to us, my co-author and I are both Reiki practitioners, and I haven't had this happen, but she has. She always burns incense when she's giving a Reiki treatment, and also when the greys come in to talk. And on several occasions, they've actually formed shapes with the incense as it burns. So it'll go round and round and round in a spiral. And we actually have photos of this up on our website. And they're still there years later. And it got to a point where she never wanted to destroy this artwork, this grey artwork we refer to it as, so she kept having to buy new incense holders because she kept running out of incense holders. Every time she'd burn incense, it would form a beautiful spiral pattern or something. So yes, we've had similar things happening.
So one of the things that the grey aliens, I think, want us to know, Judy, is that the Earth is a biological living entity with many energetic life forms, right?
Yes.
both on the surface and inside these other dimensions of the Earth, of which we will all become, we will all start to interact with on a multidimensional level as the Earth evolves into this higher dimension of existence, of light or of frequency, and that we need to all embrace these other beings as we start to merge with them. Is that correct? And would you ask the Greys, if I have about 15 minutes left, if they would like to come out and speak directly, because I welcome their dialogue if they would like to do that.
Yes, I generally don't channel in a situation like this. I like to have my co-author with me, like as a control. They have actually given a huge amount of information through my books and obviously through Betty and Bob's books as well. I would also like to direct people to our website, which is ufograyinfo.com. Gray is spelled with an E. I'll just give that again, ufograyinfo.com. But look, I'm happy to speak for them. I wouldn't actually mind going back over a few points that Betty and Bob have brought up. For example, speaking about religion and spirituality, that's exactly what we've been told as well, that it's not so much religion we should be tuning into, but spirituality. It's like religion's the sort of the ritual outer dogma side of it, and spirituality is our level of personal consciousness, and it's the level of spirituality that needs to be raised on Earth.
Yes.
Another thing that they spoke about, that Betty and Bob spoke about, that the Greys have brought up, is talking about the importance of animals. We actually asked our Grey teachers once, what is the role of animals down here? And they used dogs as an example, and they said your pet dog is here to teach you unconditional love.
Yes.
Because animals, and particularly dogs, because they're in our homes interacting with us, they are the best examples of unconditional love on the planet.
There are a lot of people that animals have become more human to than the humans themselves.
Exactly.
And Judy, can you talk just for a few minutes about all of the other species that exist that we're going to be interacting with, because as disclosure really becomes a reality, and Bob and Betty's story to me and the Reed story that we talked about last week are really the main purpose for those two revelations right now is for our government and for all of us citizens collectively to lift the veil, as Betty's new book is going to be titled, and understand that we are in a multiverse of sentient beings. And can you explain a little bit about what we're going to encounter and what all of these other life forms are going to be like? They're not going to look just like humans. They're going to be of a different nature and so on. And can you sort of talk a little bit about what we might expect?
Oh, my goodness, it's unlimited. Again, a teaching that we've received is that the physical universe is only a very, very small part of the whole. Again, I think it's about 1/10 from what we can work out. So the majority of the universe is vibrating on much, much higher frequency levels than we are down here. We're limited to third-dimensional reality, but, I mean, there are limitless dimensions. It's not limited at all. Planet Earth is actually on the first level of the human ladder with our 10% consciousness. So as we evolve over eons and eons of lifetimes, we will gradually be able to tap in consciously to higher levels. And in fact, all of us actually do have a part of our being on all these levels because we are multidimensional beings. And so sometimes this, you were speaking before about a 15-foot being behind you, Michael. This could be part of your own higher self, as was it Betty or Bob said. It's very likely a part of your own self. And often the ETs that we encounter are parts of our own self. And yes, there are multiple ones working together. I know that the Greys and the Pleiadians work very closely together because the Pleiadian people are virtually first cousins to Earth humans. So Earth humans can relate to them more comfortably than they can with the Greys because the Greys do vibrate on a different frequency. So the Pleiadians and Greys work very, very closely together. I believe there are people from Sirius here, other physical planets, and then there are people from much higher dimensions as well. So it's absolutely limitless as to who we could potentially run into.
And what about the Garthian and Lemurian civilizations that are in the the fifth dimensional Earth?
Yes, they're all here. And as our consciousness opens up, we'll be able to tap into these alternative realities. And this is the thing that we have to understand, that they are realities. I mean, people are very limited down here because they can only access third dimension, but there are realities way, way beyond that. And are the Greys and Palladians working together to reprogram a great portion of our population so that this multidimensional expansion is more possible? Yes, they're assisting us with our evolution by helping to repair the DNA damage that was done long ago. This is the main thing that the so-called abductions, I mean, I don't like to call it that word because that sounds very sinister to me, and I've never experienced it that way. There are, at the same time, fake-type abductions going on, engineered down here to make it look like the Greys are carrying out a sinister program. But it's not the Greys, it's very much coming from down here. But the reason why people are genuinely taken up onto the discs is to help to repair the DNA, to provide them with teachings, multidimensional teachings. Many of the star children speak about these adventures they have taken up onto the ships. There's also genetic work going on, again, linked in with our DNA. So there's multiple programs going on, and it is all aimed at helping people to grow spiritually.
So sorry, one more thing. So the hybrid race, the hybridization program is a human DNA upgrade and reactivation program that the Palladians, Greys, and a couple of the other races have been participating in.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And what they're doing, they're creating these hybrids just in case things do go wrong down here. Because the reason why they're not intervening is because we have free will on this planet. It's our job is to choose between love and fear. This is the whole Armageddon thing, and this is what's going on at the moment. Humans are being given the space to choose between love and fear. Now, if by any chance we go down the fear path and planet Earth gets destroyed or the human race gets destroyed in the process, these hybrids are our future. They're the way that the race will continue, so that even if something happens down here, there'll still be Earth human genetics out there that can continue as a race, because it's an important planet. I mean, no planet wants to be lost. No race wants to be lost.
So if this government and this shadowy group that has the greed and the corruption behind them that's denying us access to free energy and technology and dumbing us down with food and GMOs and things like that, were to want us to go down the path of fear, would they probably make it seem as if the aliens were a threat to us and that they're dangerous?
Oh, look, that's exactly what's happening. Exactly what's happening. And I'm quite rabid about getting this message out here through my books, and obviously Betty and Bob are as well. And
well, I'll tell you what, you don't have to write a book, because I've got people on the line right now that want to hear it. They're from high-level government. They're from all kinds of disclosure, ufology, and other institutions. So what exactly are the Greys and the Palladians and all of the other spiritual beings here on the planet trying to tell us?
Well, basically they're saying choose love over fear. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. And this is the reason why so much fear is being spread on this planet, to pull us away from that message. I mean, love is the path of God. Fear is the path of Satan, if we want to use fundamentalist terms. And so this is why there's this huge propaganda, disinformation, fear campaign, threatening people, etc. The bottom line is we need to choose love over fear, and this is what the Greys keep pushing and pushing and pushing.
Now, if people resonate from a higher frequency of light, and meaning that they're in their heart chakra and that they have this connection to a higher density, higher vibration, will they be able to overcome all the adversity and all of the negativity that's being thrown at them. Is that the power of the light is so strong? Is that not true?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, it is. Positivity will always win out in the end because negativity self-destructs. And the thing is, quantum physics is proving now that we create our own reality. So we need to very strongly and definitely create a reality of love rather than creating a reality of fear. We choose our own destiny. And it's not always easy. It is very difficult on a planet like this because we keep getting pulled down, pulled down, pulled down. But we have to remember that all of us have God within us. We're all part of this massive multidimensional oneness energy that people down here call God.
And there's this one particular race that is said to have a detrimental intentions toward the human race, and it's my theory that they feed off negative energy and that they'd like us to remain in fear, and that this is something that they feed off of. So all we have to do to avoid that is to turn ourselves away from fear and towards love and into the light.
Yes.
I got a question here. Excuse me. Go ahead, Judy. I didn't mean to jump on your answer.
No, you're right.
What, as you are, all three of you, what do the Greys have to say to Debbie about her role in all of this?
Well, from my perspective, speaking on their behalf, they're extremely grateful. You know, a huge thank you for people like Debbie and yourself and other people who are willing to give people like us a chance to speak on these programs. It's just wonderful. We're so grateful.
That's wonderful, yes.
I'm just observing.
Debbie evidently has been involved in this for a very long time. I don't know you personally, Debbie, but I mean, you are very much with it, and you want to learn as much as possible. You've been in this a long time, and I'm sure that God is grateful.
You can tell by her questions that she's being given these questions to ask you. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I agree. And this is for you, Deb, because you are doing something very important here.
Yes, it is.
Well, we're going to just be out of time in about 5 minutes, but I am honored to have spoken to all of you today. We are very excited at the prospect of being able to meet our gray alien comrades who are cosmic citizens with us on this journey that we're all embarking on, and it's a very exciting time to be here on Earth. Bob, I'd like to give you a moment just to some final thoughts about your experiences with the alien grays and sort of how you plan to, what's your next steps? I mean, I know you're writing a book, but what else do you see in the future as far as what you and Betty are doing?
Well, I think from my personal viewpoint, people that knew me before and have seen the changes in me, I think will believe what I have to tell them. My hope is that more people that hear of these experiences will stop, think about their lives, think about what they've done, and where they're going to go from here. You know, the simplest thing in the world, and the beings told Betty, love is the answer. It's so simple. It's just beautiful. People need to see that. Now, as far as anything else that may or may not come from the government, we're not going to be intimidated one way or another. We have a case going right now. The United States Navy Space Weapons Division and the Army both broke into my computer. I caught them. I had filed Freedom of Information on them, which they didn't answer. I wrote my state senator. He couldn't get an answer from them. I now have it before the United States Attorney General. I want to know why these people are breaking into my computer, because if you go into their computer at the Department of Defense, you know what happens to you. You're going away for a long time. So apparently they thought there was something in my computer that might be of use to them, and there isn't, because information like that is not kept in my computer. So we're not going to be intimidated by the government. We want people to think about love, about getting along together, and about treating this earth and everything on it as it should be treated.
One thing that it says in your bio, Bob, and I just want to read it, and this is on behalf of both Bob and Betty. They are both hoping that disclosure will happen before too much more time passes, as they believe the public has a right to know, and an honest government has a duty to be truthful, something that thus far has not been the case.
That's right. That's right.
So let's hope that the government can be pressured by the citizens. This is a citizen's choice. Actively pursue whatever means you have to get the government for full disclosure and welcoming of our cosmic destiny. So thank you, Judy. Thank you, Michael Hathaway. And thank you, special guests, Bob and Betty Luca.
Oh, thank
you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Hi everybody, it's me, The Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.